You don't want it to be something cliche like, oh, I was affected by the corona pandemic. I saw people clapping on the street for the NHS workers, and I wanted them to do it for me. Hey everyone, my name's Devin. I'm a fourth year medical student at Imperial College London. Welcome to my channel. I make videos about student lifestyle, medicine and tech, and so if any of that interests you, make sure you smash that subscribe button down below. This video is going to be mega useful if you guys are going to be writing your own medicine personal statement in the next few months. So I'll give you guys some of my personal statement tips, and then I'll give you examples from my own actual personal statement. And if you guys want to see my full personal statement that I use to get interviews at places like Bristol and Imperial, which heavily look at personal statement, then I will have a link down below in the description. And just like all my other videos, timestamps will be in the description down below and chapters on the video, so you can always skip along to whatever tip you're interested in. And due to popular demand, I've got my stethoscope back, and as it's a medicine video, I thought it'd be a fit. Without further ado, let's jump straight into the video. The intro is very important. It's the first thing that the readers will see, and if yours is boring, then they just won't continue and they'll just skim through and not really pay much attention to it. You don't need something really dramatic. You need something that's more genuine and realistic. The main important thing is to, tell the reader why you want to study medicine, what inspired you, what motivated you. And if you can do that within the first two lines, then that's basically ideal. Ideally, it shouldn't be like a one-off dramatic event that suddenly overnight you decide to do medicine. It could be something that created that interest, and then over the next few years you decided, you know what, I do want to do medicine, using your work experience and things you learn, and then it just fortified that interest that you had. And I would heavily advise you to actually make it something personal. You don't want it to be something cliche like, oh, I was affected by the corona pandemic. I saw people clapping on the street for the NHS workers, and I wanted them to do it for me. You need something, unique, personal, genuine, and something realistic. And so in my personal statement, I wrote, "My aspiration to study medicine began when I underwent surgery and witnessed the dedication and hard work of the staff that were caring for me. This gave me a realistic insight into hospital life and an understanding that a doctor's job can be incredibly hard work and isn't always glamorous." And so at this point, I'd undergone 2 surgeries where I'd gone down under. General anesthesia, not Australia, by the way. I talked about things that I saw and then why that inspired me. Now, it's not something drastic, it's something quite small, but it was more realistic and it was true. And I don't know if you noticed, but I referred to them as staff and not the doctors. It's quite a subtle thing, but what it did was it showed the readers I'm not turning a blind eye to all the efforts of the rest of the team. I don't see that, oh, only the doctors do everything, because that's not the case. This small little thing implied that I understand this. And next, you'll notice that I mentioned that medicine isn't always glamorous, which brings me on to the second point. And that is that you need to show the reader that medicine isn't some kind of utopia. A lot of students just blindly say, oh yeah, medicine is amazing, nothing goes wrong, everything is perfect, you can save patients and all that. And the reality is, it's not always true. There are times where, you can't do anything, where patients die. And sometimes you can be like the main thing that decides whether a person gets to live or whether a person dies. It's quite a deep thing, but at the extreme it can be that case. And knowing this won't only show you whether you really want to study medicine, but it will also tell the readers that you are a realistic person and you don't have some kind of blind eye to the hardships of medicine. And I further elaborated on this later on in my personal statement, where I said, "I became more aware of the demanding nature of the job and recognized that it can be both physically and mentally challenging." And if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure you drop a like down below and let me know in the comments that you're loving it, and subscribe if you want more content like this, obviously. Let me know as well if you want to see a part 2 to this, because I'm enjoying making this video and I wouldn't mind making another one. My third tip would be that you don't need to have clinical work experience. What's more important is to have work experience in a healthcare environment. Just make sure that what your medical school says, because I think most of them do say experience in a healthcare environment, and most people interpret that as clinical experience, where you're in hospitals, GP, but it doesn't have to be that way. Now, don't get me wrong, if you can find it, then definitely do it, because it's really useful. But I'm saying that if you can't find it, then don't stress, because there are other ways of showing your dedication to medicine. I actually didn't have any clinical work experience. My work experience was in a healthcare setting, but what I did have was long-term commitment. I worked with autistic children for about 1.5 years, and so in my personal statement I wrote, "Since last October, I have also been volunteering at a charity that supports autistic children. These children struggle with daily social activities, and it has been my role to identify their sensory needs and work with their strengths, providing feedback on their progress." Now, medicine isn't a one-off thing, it's a lifelong commitment where you're going to be caring for patients for a long time and you're going to be constantly learning. You know, it is a lifelong learning subject, even if they say it's cliche. It is really true, and you need to find a way of showing the readers that you understand this, and that's why I'd say to find work experience early. That way you can do something for a long period of time, and if you can show them that you're committed, you know, to medicine before you're even a doctor, and you're doing whatever you can that is in your reach for your age, then you know it's a big tick in their books, really. If you've only done work experience for, let's say, 2 weeks, I wouldn't recommend you mention that you did it for 2 weeks, because it can appear as a negative thing where they think that, oh, you couldn't be bothered to do that long-term commitment. And so what I'd say is just mention, you know, what you did and what you learned from it and how it applies to medicine, which brings me on to tip number 4. It's all about what you learned and not what you did. You can have a massive long list of things you do, and you know, for 1 day, 2 days, what's the point if you didn't learn anything from it? So what you need to do is make sure you let the readers know what you did and then what you learned from it, and then relate that into medicine and how it can help further your career, or how it, you know, helped you develop as a person. And you have to explicitly tell them what you learned. They can't know what's in your head. You know, they can't tell what you learned. They don't know you. Further on, I wrote, "This gave me the experience of handling more challenging situations, such as trying to calm children down during times of heightened emotion." And what this does is it implies that I had to implement ways to manage that situation and diffuse it. And it's a perfect cue for them to ask about in the interview. What did you do? How did you go about the situation? What, you know, techniques did you implement? Things like that. And then you can follow up. And the next thing I did was I linked it all the way back up to the medicine isn't glamorous and the fact that I'm going to be facing challenging situations in the future, and I'm already learning ways to cope with it right now. And my last tip would be to research about what the medical school wants, and that way you can tailor your personal statement to the structure that your medical school wants you to have. And by this I mean that most medical schools want a well-rounded applicant, someone who has the academics but also, you know, learns to chill a little bit, you know, has some kind of extracurriculars. Their life isn't just, you know, all medicine. And that's why I believe that it was important to bring this up near the very end of the personal statement, you know, just to give a small little insight of, you know, what I do, what the real dev is like on the side. And I did karate for about 6 years, so I thought it was a nice way of bringing that into the application and showing that if they rejected my application, I would fight them. And I think that made up a big part of my Imperial application, you know, just the fear of me knocking down their doors if they rejected me. And I think it worked. And so I wrote, "I've been able to push my limits while practicing karate, as it requires commitment and discipline, especially as I approach black belt. Competing in national tournaments and achieving second place for Team Kata highlights my determined and competitive nature. Along with reducing stress, it helps me develop mental endurance, which will be helpful when facing the pressures of studying medicine." Now this was an important paragraph because first, it showed that I have a life outside medicine. Number 2, it showed that I have a competitive nature. Number 3, I actually won an award for this competitive nature. And number 4, it links back up all the way to the medicines and glamorous part, because I know the hardships and stresses and the challenges that are coming in medicine up in the future. I know about them, and I already have ways of managing that stress right now. Using karate, all the mental endurance and, you know, relieving stress, and I linked that all the way up to medicine. Now obviously when you look at it, karate is a completely separate thing to medicine, but I found a nice little way of subtly sort of linking it all up together. And boom, that brings the video to a close. I hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure you drop a like down below if you did, and let me know in the comments that you loved the video, and let me know in the comments as well if you'd like to see a part 2 to this. I would happily make another video. I have loads of other tips ready to share with you guys, and make sure you share it with your friends, subscribe, do everything you can to recommend this video by the YouTube algorithm. And so with that said, I hope you guys have a good day. I've been Devify, and I'm out.